Welcome to this rapid revision session looking at the French occupation of the Ruhr. Let's have a look at the background to the occupation. Germany had been forced to pay £6.6 billion in reparations after World War I, most of this going to France and Belgium, which had been invaded and therefore needed to do the most repairs. Some of this money was paid in cash, but goods like coal and steel were also used. This was made even more difficult because the government was bankrupt. All its money had been spent in World War I. France had taken areas that made Germany money, such as the Saar coalfields. And France also had debts to the USA, so it was insisting on getting reparations so that it could pay the USA back. By the end of 1922, the German government refused to pay reparations. Basically, they could not. So let's have a look at the main events of the occupation. The French decided to take the reparations by force, as was allowed by the Treaty of Versailles. In any case, the German army was so weakened by the treaty that 100,000 German soldiers lacking tanks and aircraft could not take on 750,000 more heavily armed French and Belgian troops. Also, unrest elsewhere in Germany meant the army was already busy. The French began to take coal, steel and other products in place of reparations from Germany's Ruhr industrial region, which is shown in green on the map. So how did the Weimar government respond? One thing they did was use passive resistance. German workers were encouraged to go on strike. This meant that the French had to bring in their own workers to run trains and deliver the goods. But workers being asked to go on strike needed pay. This worsened government debt. Another thing they tried was sabotage. This was more rare, but some products and machines were destroyed to stop them falling into French hands. But the French retaliated with arrests. Sometimes even shots were fired. Another thing that the government did was printing money. This was initially done to pay reparations, but now the government printed money to pay workers' wages. However, only 25% of the needed taxes were coming in to pay for this. This was disastrous. It led to out-of-control price rises, hyperinflation, and that'll be the topic of our next video. But they also produced propaganda, like the poster in the middle here. Posters were produced to get workers to support the government and blame the French for the occupation. You can see in this particular poster 2 French soldiers attacking a German worker. He's simply saying "Nein" or "no" with his hands in his pockets. This is passive resistance. He's not actively fighting back, but he's not cooperating either. However, propaganda didn't always work. Many, and especially middle-class Germans, blamed the Weimar government and considered them weak. And middle-class Germans were precisely the people who should have been supporting new democracy. So what were the outcomes of the occupation of the Ruhr? The occupation of the Ruhr lasted until August 1925. It only stopped when German Chancellor Gustav Stresemann agreed a new deal to pay reparations. However, much damage had been done. Hyperinflation destroyed the economy. People lost savings and they suffered shortages, and we'll have a more detailed look at that in future. Relations with France were made even worse than they had been before. People blamed the Weimar government, and not just the French, for what had happened. And support for extremist parties in Weimar Germany and their private armies increased. Most of all, middle-class Germans, who should have been the biggest supporters of the new democracy, were the people who were hardest hit by these outcomes. So let's recap the main points. In December 1922, the Weimar government failed to pay reparations to France. In response, the French invaded the Ruhr region to take reparations by force. This was allowed by the Treaty of Versailles. The Weimar government responded by passive resistance. Workers refused to cooperate with the French by going on strike and sabotaging deliveries. They also responded by printing money. German workers needed money, but there weren't the taxes to pay for this. So in the end, the government decisions led to disastrous hyperinflation, and the occupation only ended in 1925 after reparations payments restarted. German people lost faith in the Weimar government, and some turned to extremist parties. And middle-class Germans were the ones who suffered most. We'll have a look at some of these other outcomes in future lessons, but for now, that's the end of this rapid revision video, and thanks very much for watching. If it's been helpful, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel. That will really help spread the word and get the YouTube algorithm nice and happy. Thanks again for watching, and for now, goodbye.